Hello and welcome. Today I'm on MX bikes on the Beta 18 OEMs. I am super excited that these dropped. I haven't really done any testing or anything. I've tried out a couple bikes, spun a few laps on a couple different tracks, and wanted to get a video out. So that way some of my initial impressions are still fairly fresh, and that way I can talk about them hopefully a little better, and hopefully I can ride somewhat decent. But I was doing okay, but yeah, as soon as you start talking while trying to ride, it easily becomes a mess quickly. So we'll just go ahead and get into it. I chose the Yamaha because I'm a Tomac fan. I think he'll probably win the championship. I don't think he'll win A1, but also in Beta 18, I was not really that comfortable with the Yamaha, so I never really rode it. And when I jumped on and tried out just a couple bikes, the Yamaha actually felt pretty good. So yeah, I'll show it a little bit of love here, but I definitely still need to do more testing. But I do want to mention some of the things maybe that you'll get sketchy there, that you'll notice right off the bat when you try out the OEMs is the weight. There's a decent little tire tap, but the weight of the bikes seems a lot heavier, which is kind of nice. Feels a little more realistic, even though I've never ridden like a 450, so I don't exactly know what it would feel like, but that's what I would imagine. So yeah, a little weightier. The sounds is another thing you'll probably notice right off the bat, and it seems like some people like them, some people are kind of prefer other sounds. I think they're good. I don't really like the Yamaha sound that much, but some of the other bikes sound pretty good. So you can always install the different sound packs though to change them up. And then the powertrain, I guess, that is significantly different. I'd say that's probably the thing that took me the longest to get used to, and I'm definitely still not even used to it. But yeah, you kind of lug a lot more, and you kind of gotta get into the higher RPMs a bit to kind of hit the power band. Obviously, it matters a lot more on a 250 than a 450, but still, yeah, definitely more of like a delay to when you kind of hit the power band as you kind of ramp up the RPM. So that's kind of cool, but again, it took me a minute to kind of get used to it. So yeah, and again, still definitely getting used to it, but I do think it feels pretty good. The next thing is probably the suspension, which I would say is probably what everybody's the most excited for, or at least I was. That was interesting. That was the first kind of big Poboso bounce that I've had. So to go off of that a little more, the Poboso bounce is not as much of a problem. There's a couple instances where you'll still get it, but it is greatly improved. As you can see, I just botched that little triple tire tap thing and cased it, and just a little bounce, kind of maybe what would happen in real life. But yeah, it's a lot less of a bounce when you do actually bounce, and I would say a little more controllable as well. Obviously, it's kind of one of those things that's hard to show off because it just kind of happens when it happens. But yeah, the Poboso bounce, not entirely eliminated, is significantly better, so that is always a plus. And I will say, some of the techniques and stuff obviously do translate. It's not like this game is going to be unplayable. It's just going to be those minute things that will make a difference. For example, landing on the rear wheel heavy and then leaning forward to kind of minimize the bounce. That's obviously still works, but again, you don't have to really worry about it as much. You just want to make sure you're landing kind of all right. See how we cased that right there? We'll go into the replay, do a little bit of slow-mo, because as everybody knows, that probably would have sent you into a backflip when you hit that. But there is a bounce, but that is just so much more controlled. So yeah, that's kind of a good example of the suspension, which the suspension feels a lot stiffer than it did in beta 17. But again, there's not a bounce, so it totally works out. I think it feels really, really good, and I'd imagine you could probably play around with the setups to your liking. I am not really that familiar with doing setups, but yeah, this is pretty much stock. I will go into settings real quick to go into the pit real quick just to show you a little bit of what I've done. So I've lowered the gas. I feel like it's kind of a given. This is the default tires. I lowered the rear PSI a little bit. I felt like it kind of helped with the rear wheel braking traction. And this is all very little testing. This is just kind of, on a whim. I changed the rear brake to a smaller one just because I feel like I was accidentally locking up the rear wheel again a little too much. So yeah, there's tons of different tire options now. You've got medium, mid-soft, sand, and I, again, haven't done any testing on this. There's so much to do with these new bikes and mess around with. Drivetrain, everything stock. You've got different mappings here and a lot more options as far as tuning this, like swing arm length. It was 1 or 2, I'm pretty sure. Now you've got a ton of different options. But yeah, this is going to take a lot of testing. So as far as setup goes, this is pretty much stock. I've done only a couple things here and there. Yeah, we're going to go back to the track here. So yeah, I think that this is a giant step in the right direction. It's fantastic to see how much progress I feel like this game's made. But to go back to things you'll notice that's different about the game, whips are quite a bit different. So they're a lot harder to throw, or let me rephrase that. They're a lot harder to bring back, but they're a lot easier to throw. You can throw some absolutely disgusting whips. They're just kind of hard to bring back because there's not as much of a gyro to bring them back as beta 17, and I would imagine that kind of has to do with the weight and stuff like that, which makes sense. Obviously the gyro is still there, it's not eliminated completely, but let's see if I can throw something off this triple. So throw a little whip. I'm actually gonna have to kind of try to bring it back. So that's kind of a decent sized whip that was possible. And again, there's probably way bigger whips possible, but I'm gonna try to just throw something kind of filthy. So we'll come up here and I'm just gonna see how we got upside down. You didn't really have that weird weird twitch when you hit certain angles. Let's slow this down real quick. So yeah, through it, just absolutely upside down. Maybe on a bigger jump could have brought it back or had a little more skill. But yeah, and that wasn't even the nastiest whip I've ever thrown. Let's see if I can do another one. Maybe bring it back. We'll see. All right, I'm gonna sit down this time. Oh yeah, that was another pretty nasty one right there, and we actually brought it back. So check that out in some slow-mo. Get a cinematic view. Yeah, just completely upside down, backwards. That was a little weird on the landing there, but yeah, as you can see, you could just throw some nutty whips, but it's a lot different trying to bring them back. Really got to kind of try, as opposed to 17. Ooh, we almost looped out there. Also, the traction feels a bit different. Again, I haven't tested all the different tire options or anything, but it definitely feels a lot better. But I'm just speaking on how I feel. It's not like I'm doing a back-to-back comparison, but I mean, again, I'm just running the default setup for this Yamaha, and the traction feels good, feels predictable. Obviously, I did change the rear tire pressure a little bit, But again, you know, that's just something that everybody's gonna have to test and figure out what they like, which I think is cool. Still clear that triple. There we go. But yeah, the biggest thing about this new update is the game, to me, feels a lot more consistent, and I've said it a lot in my videos. That's the biggest thing that I have with this game when it comes to things I'd like to see that were improved. It was always consistency. Like, you know, some of the physics might be a little jank or whatever. As long as it's predictable and I can kind of figure out a way to negate whatever's happening, just because I can predict kind of what's going to happen. You know, that's just my biggest thing. I like the consistency. I like being able to, you know, spin laps without some like odd little thing happening, whether it be like a strange rebound or breaking traction kind of unexpectedly, which, I mean, that should definitely happen occasionally, but I just feel like it doesn't happen as much anymore. But yeah, again, right there, I'm just gonna do another little quick replay since we landed pretty deep. I think we probably even hit flat there. All right, let's slow this down. Yeah, basically flat. Knifed the fork there. Yeah, all out of whack. But, you know, it might not be the most realistic looking, but you would be dead in beta 17. There's like no recovering from that sort of landing. Like, that's just, whereas I was actually able to kind of save it. It might have been a little bit luck, but again, it was kind of predictable a little bit. Again, case that, backed out of it, everything was fairly predictable. Whereas before, you know, you might have gotten a strange Poboso bounce and just that would have ended it right then and there. So yeah, huge step in the right direction, in my opinion. I still need to figure out whips, though. I feel like they're not as cool looking as they could be, that's for sure. But again, gonna come with some more messing around. But either way, I kind of hoped you enjoyed this video. I'm not, you know, going super into depth, going through like a change log, anything like that. It's just what I feel and what I think you might feel when you try out the beta 18 if you haven't already. Or if you don't own the game, but just like following MX bikes in general. Hopefully my explanations and descriptions could help maybe give you a sense of what it's like. But either way, I appreciate you checking this out. And until the next one.